Evolve generated a lot of hype last year, with over 60 awards at E3, including Best of the Show from some popular establishments. It sounded like it was going to be a great game. On paper, Evolve seemed incredible. Man vs Beast, survival of the fittest, the hunter becomes the hunted, David and Goliath. You get the idea. However, Evolve in a nutshell is a content-light, repetitive, soulless game played by Day 1 DLC controversy and mediocre gameplay. So, what went wrong?
They are likely not native.
Monsters. We're hunting monsters.
Evolve never appeared to be a game doomed to fail. The concept seemed excellent. It was the execution that hit a brick wall. The game is built around 4 hunters versus 1 beast. That's the core element here, but that's pretty much it. There's no interesting game modes or twists or anything that can be honestly considered exciting. So where are all the exciting game modes? Well, unfortunately, there isn't any. There is but a handful, and they aren't very impressive. It basically comes down to hunt and extraction. Hunt being simple 4 versus 1 seek and destroy, and extraction is slightly more complex. Extraction is a 5-round campaign where hunters fight to evacuate the planet's survivors. This also includes mission objectives, which if completed can provide bonuses to the victor. This can be anything from allied soldiers or specialist soldiers to enemy beasts or turrets. There's in fact many combinations depending on which mission is selected and whether it's completed by man or beast. The downside is that these objectives are downright boring. One objective requires you to destroy 6 eggs, because nothing is more fun than standing in a circle shooting a red egg. Another requires you to save several survivors and escort them to an extraction point. Another requires you to protect an objective from destruction. Once you've done all this, you're rewarded XP, depending how well you've done, which levels you up. It's incredible to see a AAA game that has about as much depth as a puddle. In fact, it gets worse. Once you realise what you spent your £50 on, you'll soon notice that there's not much of a game there. Here's what you get: 12 hunters, 3 monsters, a bonus monster as a pre-order incentive which is yet to be released, 12 maps that are more or less identical, a handful of unimaginative game modes, and that's your lot. That's all there is to this game. Yet if you head over to your local DLC store, there's a dozen of skin packs ranging from £4 to £6, the season pass at £20 which includes new hunters, and then there's the extra monsters. That way may well cost you about £12. Just what the hell is going on here? It's a complete joke. Rather than delivering a game bursting with content, it seems like it's been sliced and diced to the point where you're getting less content than most free-to-play games. The fact this game is being shipped with a £50 price tag is in no way justifiable. Okay, enough talk of DLC. What is the actual gameplay like? Well, when it works, Evolve is pretty damn fun to play. As a hunter, you're armed to the teeth with some interesting weaponry and class-specific abilities. Everyone has a specific role to play: assault, medic, trapper, and support. Before starting a game, you get to choose what character you would like to play the most, and then each character is selected for a class depending on their top choices. This actually makes sense. Without this, you'll probably end up with 4 assault players or 4 medics, or, well, you know what I mean. Combat-wise, the hunters have to track down their target as quickly as possible, else the opposing player, the monster, will eat his way to the 3rd tier of evolution. Think Charmander to Charizard. And, well, then he becomes a viable threat, which is usually ends in, well, killing the 4 hunters. Personally, I prefer playing as the hunters as they have more varied arsenal compared to the monsters, and firing off high-powered weapons is very satisfying. Playing as the monsters, it can get repetitive quite quickly. Mainly because there's only 3 to choose from at the moment, and you don't really have much choice in doing the same thing over and over. It's run, feed, get big, kill. Maybe a bit more running in between. As the hunters, you literally just need to sprint to the monster as fast as you can to take him down before he gets any bigger, and this is where the game falls apart. Evolve could fall into the category of a running simulator because 80% of this game is running. It's like something from a Benny Hill thing. It's where you can just be chasing the monster for minutes on end with no combat or anything remotely interesting going on. It just feels like a chore, and sighs of boredom eventually set in. The arenas you fight in aren't very exciting either, mostly jungles and ruined buildings, but none of them are exactly memorable, and they all pretty much blur into one. There's no special equipment pickups or interesting monuments to fight over. Visually, it's all very brown, there's not much colour, and considering you're fighting your way through lush jungles, the greenery isn't very green. Despite running only on the new shiny consoles and PC, the game wins no awards for jaw-dropping graphics. In the screenshots it looks pretty, but in motion it's all a bit bland. I've yet come across anything that's worth me pressing my share button. The maps aren't completely soulless however, as they are populated with various hazards, which keep the hunters on their toes, such as smaller predators, carnivorous plants, and larger enemies which can quickly kill any player if caught off guard. There are also albino enemies, which when killed can provide a buff to a hunter or beast. These can vary from health regen, jetpack fuel, extended magazines and more. This adds slight tactical depth and encourages the hunters to seek out these monsters to get an edge over the big bad beast. The monster also has a few things to watch out for too, such as birds which can give away its position, and other large enemies that can cause significant damage if not dealt with properly. Progression in Evolve is a mixed bag. As you play through games you earn XP that levels you up and unlocks perks. Each character can also level up their equipment that makes them more lethal in the field. Oddly, the rest of the hunters are locked behind XP milestones and aren't immediately accessible, which means you need to grind with each class to unlock someone new to play as. Other than that, you earn emblems and a skin, which isn't very exciting. It seems like a clunky way of doing things. It would have made more sense to have weapon and ability unlocks that you can customise the hunters with, but instead, that's not the case, and it's even worse for the monsters. Not only does it get repetitive due to the fact there's only a measly 3 on offer, they only have 4 abilities each, and they can be upgraded, but that's it. And it doesn't really give the player much to play with. When it comes to playing online, it can vary from good to bad. With friends, Evolve is slightly more enjoyable, but nevertheless you're going to be spending several minutes sprinting around the map trying to track the monster. From the games I've played alone, there's been pretty much no communication. It seems people are still a bit shy when it comes to playing team-based games. Another annoyance is when someone thinks they can go lone wolf because Evolve can't be played like that. You have to stay as a unit. But when it comes to combat, it all depends on whether everyone does stick together, and especially if the enemy player is going to put up a real fight. There's been times where the enemy player has either given up or quit when they're trapped early. Of course, a bot takes over if that happens, but you really need to know what you're doing if you're playing as the monster. Things can get monotonous quite fast. There is a learning curve, and when playing as the beast, you need to spend most of the time sneaking around and running away in the early stages. To get a slight edge, you mainly have to grind to level up abilities, which helps make encounters slightly easier. Evolve could have and should have been a better game. There are a few redeeming qualities such as the character designs which look impressive, and the voice acting is great. Each character tends to have a bit of banter from time to time, and Hyde, one of the assault players, likes to shout out,
"Fine! Bring on the fucking pain!"
which does have for some badassery. These larger-in-life characters have a unique persona which makes them fun to play as, but there really isn't a lot to shout about. One moment that hints towards what the game could have been is one of the last cutscenes during Extraction, where 12 hunters are stood side by side facing off a horde of enemies. That's the game I want to play. That's something the game could have been, but instead you just get a 15-minute cat and mouse romp. Unfortunately, Evolve simply doesn't deliver on what could have been an exceptional game. There should have been more exciting and interesting game modes for this title, but it seems Turtle Rock only went for the mundane. There's no memorable moments, no redeeming qualities, and it's not worth forking out your hard-earned cash for. Even though the game was delayed for a few months, it feels like there's very little to show for it. Evolve lacks content, interesting features, and fails to provide an exciting experience that one would expect from a AAA game. There are moments where this game is enjoyable, but they are just moments. Overall, Evolve is inexplicably average, and will probably be remembered for its shoddy DLC practices more than the game itself.